ABC Adelaide. Now, can I ask you a personal question? Are you a poker? Maybe you're a tweeter. Or maybe it sounds like I'm speaking a completely foreign language and you think he's finally lost the plot. It's the end of his first week and that was good while it lasted, but it's time for him to move on and be retired. Well, talking about social media, of course, it's everywhere these days, whether it's Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, or LinkedIn. And it's not just individuals using them. Increasingly, major corporations are using social media to communicate directly with their customers and to promote all sorts of things as well as deal with criticism. Are you a social media junkie? Imagine if someone said to you, you can't tweet for a week or check Facebook. How would you cope? 1300 222 891. Also like to hear from you if you think social media is a complete waste of time. 1300 222 891, or you can send us a text 0467 922 891. Joining me now is one of Adelaide's leading social media consultants, Michelle Prack. Good afternoon and welcome to 891.
Hello, thank you.
These platforms have been around for years now, but it seems to me there are still some people who are quite dismissive of social media. Why is that?
I think there are a number of factors. Certainly one of the big factors is related to all the things that we hear about social media. So social media, there are a lot of horror stories, if you like. We hear about cyberbullying, for example. We hear about people being sacked for things that they tweet or they post on Facebook. And we also associate social media quite often with celebrities and politicians who we may not have time for. So I think that contributes to some dismissal of social media from some people, if you like.
It's interesting you mentioned people being sacked for things that they do on Facebook. I heard a lovely line the other day. It used to be, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. It's now, what happens in Vegas stays on Facebook. You've got to be careful about the sort of things that you post, because I imagine it's probably the first place that potential employers might go to try and find out about you.
That's right. That's what we're seeing now, that more and more people do vet their prospective employees online. It's quite easy using search engines to pop anyone's name in and to see what they've been doing on Facebook or Twitter or on their own blog.
If you've got any questions for Michelle, 1300 222 891. Maybe this is all a foreign language to you. We don't mind how straightforward the questions are. If you'd like to know how Twitter works or Facebook, 1300 222 891 or 0467 922 891 if you'd like to send us a text. If we can talk about Twitter now, I must admit I'm a relatively recent convert, having only joined last year. I was quite dismissive of it, thinking, oh, it's just people talking about having haircuts or being out for a baby chino. It's really a waste of time. But it's far more than that, isn't it?
It is. People do talk about what they have for breakfast or talk about the weather, but in the same way that you talk about those things offline. But people are also sharing very important news, or they're learning from each other, they're connecting with family and friends. So it really just is a tool for any type of communication that you're interested in.
And increasingly, corporations are using it to communicate with people. Tell us how that's working.
That's working in all sorts of ways. Some corporations are using it as an extension of what they do on their websites, for example. So they might be talking about the products they have, the new brands being released. But a lot of corporations are using it for customer service now as well. Twitter is a great customer service space because you can quite quickly and easily answer customer questions and queries. And the organisations that tend to like Twitter for customer service are banks and your airlines and telephone companies. So if you think about the quick tweet, the quick answer that you can give, you can see why Twitter is so handy for that.
And I saw an example in a magazine the other day of Vodafone using it. Of course, there were a lot of complaints about Vodafone coverage and customer service. They'd initially, as I understand it, been using Twitter as a sales promotions tool, but have since been using it as a way of handling complaints.
That's right. And from some case studies that I've read about, big corporations have been able to divert resources from call centres or other avenues of communication and put them into social media instead. So it's not necessarily more work, but just a different way of working.
We've got a text in now. While some people have negative perceptions about Facebook, I think it's a great way to stay in touch with family and friends overseas, like friends in Mexico. So that's another thing, isn't it? Facebook has how many members now?
In Australia, it has 10 million and worldwide 800 million, and they're predicting it will be 1 billion this year.
And across all demographics, because I know a lot of grandparents like to keep up with what's happening with their grandkids interstate or overseas, so it's not just young people. That's often a misperception, isn't it?
That's right, and if you think about how easy it is to share photographs online too, that's a big, powerful element of Facebook, to share the family photographs that would take, a long time if you did it by mail, for example.
Of course, you can find Michelle on Twitter at Pracky, that's prakky. And I'm on Twitter as well, at Michael Smith, that's spelt with a Y. And if you're taking down notes, David Bevan has finally joined the Twitterverse this week. He's at davidbevan891. Although having said that, you'll probably just get updates on the weather, which you can do by looking out the window. Is this a generational thing, or are young people taking to Twitter as well? Older people.
Twitter actually does have an older demographic. Young people tend to love Facebook, and of course they're in love with texting. But if you look at the Twitter user numbers, most of them are in their late 30s, so that's quite interesting too. Different social media platforms attract a different type of user, and social media broadly certainly isn't just for teenagers.
Why do you think it is that older people have the Twitter appeal? Why is that?
I think Twitter is more about networking as well, and keeping up with news and making new friends. So if you think about the older demographic, that would appeal to them, whereas Facebook is very much about hanging out with your current friends, which is very important to teenagers.
People are listening online and tweeting about us as well. That's amazing. Listening online to the discussion feels appropriate. And someone else has tweeted, hey, don't diss baby chinos. So it's, people obviously like having those sort of social updates on social media. So how do you manage to fit social media into what is a busy lifestyle for many people? Where do you find time to tweet and send photos and things like that?
Smartphones have made it incredibly easy for us to use social media platforms. So, for example, I have Twitter on my phone and Facebook and a few other social media tools. And whenever I'm in a queue or in a waiting room or even in the backyard, I'll use a social media platform then. So smartphones have made it easier for us to fit it into our lives.
Does it become a bit of a drug? Do you feel disconnected if you're not checking it all the time?
There's a few studies into this that, there is that instant gratification you can gain from social media, and certainly with anything that you can enjoy immensely, it can become drug-like or addictive, and I'm sure there are some personalities that have taken it to a level that may not be good for them.
I managed to lose my smartphone a couple of months ago and was used to reading Twitter updates on there, and I felt like half my brain had been removed. It was completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
If you'd like to join this conversation, 1300 222 891, or you can send us a text on 0467 922 891. My guest this afternoon is social media consultant Michelle Prack. Are you a tweeter? Are you addicted to Facebook? We can help you with all of that. Tony from Port Lincoln has given us a call. Hi, Tony. Michelle, if you'd like to pop your headphones on. What would you like to say?
My question is, I run two businesses. I'm involved with about 3 charities. I don't have time for all this sort of stuff. If the grandchildren want to send me photos, why can't they just do it by email?
Tony, thank you for your thoughts on that. Michelle, is that often a criticism? This is a waste of time?
Yes, I have a lot of organisations ask me how they can possibly fit it in on top of everything else they have to do. But often I find you can swap out something that you're doing. So, for example, if you're a business owner, you might be printing out newsletters, sending them through the mail, taking a lot of time, putting stamps on and all sorts of other things, whereas you might be able to communicate to your customers or your friends and your network with a few keystrokes on the keyboard, and also have a conversation immediately with them back and forth to answer any queries that they might have. So it's just a matter of planning out how you can use it, but not making it become an onerous new task.
How important is it these days for a company to have an online media presence? Are they at a distinct disadvantage if they're not on Twitter or Facebook?
It depends on what business you're in, but if you're a consumer brand, for example, you're at a big disadvantage if you're not using social media at all. And what we're seeing now too is that government is using social media more and more, and that they need to be there because people, the community expects to be able to talk to government departments via any channel, including social media channels.
So why would you argue that using Twitter, for instance, to service customer needs would be better than an email or a phone call?
Because Twitter's more open, so that when you answer...
How important is it these days for a company to have an online media presence? Are they at a distinct disadvantage if they're not on Twitter or Facebook?
It depends on what business you're in, but if you're a consumer brand, for example, you're at a big disadvantage if you're not using social media at all. And what we're seeing now too is that government is using social media more and more, and that they need to be there because people, the community expects to be able to talk to government departments via any channel, including social media channels.
So why would you argue that using Twitter, for instance, to service customer needs would be better than an email or a phone call?
Because Twitter's more open, so that when you answer someone's query, everyone else has the opportunity to see that answer too. So you're not just answering a person one-on-one, you're not servicing one person, but you could be answering for the 500 or 5,000 followers that are following along.
We've got a text here saying that somebody joined Twitter to follow Kev Corduroy, which of course is Matthew Abraham's account, are now getting undesirable emails from people. Are issues of spam a problem on Twitter or not so much?
You do occasionally get spam, but I've found that it's no worse than the traditional old email, if you like, and even my letterbox. So I'm still getting plenty of printed material from, shopping centres and catalogues. We just need to, if you like, refresh our spam filters now and again.
Sean has called us from Moota. Sean, you'd like to have a chat to Michelle.
How you going? I find on Facebook, if you criticise a company, they'll pretty much just delete the post anyway, straight away.
So you figure it's a waste of time even interacting with them online?
Yeah, a fair few companies like that and a fair few media outlets that just delete your comments straight away.
All right, Sean, thank you for that. Michelle, would you like to respond to Sean's comment?
That's terrible to hear. I don't think that those brands are using social media very well, and assuming that your comments were civil and not too aggressive, Sean, I would expect that they'd leave all customer comments on there and respond so that the rest of their community can see how they resolve issues. So if they're removing things and having a very moderated social media profile, that isn't the best way to use social media.
Because it's all about open communication, isn't it? And as you said, allowing everyone to see how companies respond.
That's right. It's the company's chance to have their say as well. So it's not all about customer complaints, but the company has a chance to shine a light on the good things that they do.
Michelle Prack, thank you. We've got a text in saying, will this be a weekly segment? It should be. Good practical advice. So thank you for coming in today, and hopefully we'll see you around about the same time next week.
Brilliant. Thank you.
It's 4:45.